We do need to have a electronic meeting statement read, Ruth.
This meeting of the Regional Housing Partnership is being held pursuant to the Code of Virginia, subsection C of section 2.2-4708.3, which allows public bodies to hold our virtual meetings. This meeting is being held via electronic video and audio means through Zoom online meetings and is accessible to the public. Notice has been provided to the public through notices at the TJPDC offices, to the media, website postings, and the agenda.
Awesome. Is that good? And online, you guys should all be able to see who's online. In the Water Street Center, we have Ruth, Christine, Logan, Gretchen, and myself. A roll call. I guess we should do that officially.
Mr. Galloway,
Here.
Mr. Smith, Ms. Claire, Margaret Claire,
Here, I'm here, sorry.
Emily Dreyfus, Colette Sheehy,
Here.
Greg Howe,
Here.
Ayla Washington,
Here.
and then Kim Highland, Alice Rupture now, Michael Pruitt.
Here.
All right, and that will take us to item 2, public comment. Comments from the public. Is there anyone online who wishes to give public comment? And there is no one in the room who wishes to give public comment. We will move on from public comment. Item 3, the consent agenda. The 2 items we have, well, let's do these individually in case people need to abstain. We have the minutes of the January 24th and the February 28th executive committee meeting minutes. Any changes or edits to the minutes?
I received one edit from Colette Sheehy
Okay,
for the January 24th minutes.
okay. So is there a motion to approve the January 24, 2024 minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, if you all unmute before I call for the votes, just so there's no delay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
I'm an abstain because I don't think I was at either of those meetings. This is Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. And then is there a motion to approve the February 28, 2024 minutes as posted?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Very good.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
Me
Thank
again.
Margaret again. And then we have the monthly financial update. This was included in the packet. Ruth, any comments we need to make there?
No, there's nothing substantially different from the prior one.
Prior. Any questions or comments about the financial update? Other than meeting done. All right, is there a motion to accept the financial update?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. We do not have any presentations today. And we do have under new business 5A, the bylaws changes, calling out term lengths, nomination committee, other items. So this body, we typically appoint our officers at the start of the fiscal year, and then they serve for 1-year terms. So typically we ask for 3 members to serve as a nominating committee to bring forward a slate of officers for the coming fiscal year. And the bylaws currently state that a chair, a vice chair, or the officers cannot serve more than 2 terms in any one role. So in the consecutive terms. And we made a change for that, for Keith to serve a 3rd year, coming and during the pandemic, just as the pandemic was getting stated. So that amendment is actually in the bylaws. And this is my 2nd year serving as chair. So I will be running up on my term limit coming to the end of this year. So one of the conversations that we were planning to have today, not specifically connected to me coming up on a 2-year term, but the term lengths and the term limits, whether it's for executive committee members, officers, separate from partnership, full partnership that's specific to the executive committee. Do we want to keep the bylaws as they are? They still are stated as such when we first put the bylaws in place before we even formed or got membership on the committee or in the partnership. So it was kind of a boiler or a template that we used to set up our bylaws. So I was hoping today to have a conversation specific for officers and executive committee members of how people feel about term limits. Term limits sometimes can be in the way of the rotation and the switch of people on and off of the board. And if we want to continue with the bylaws as they are, do we want to change any term limits for officers and or executive committee members? The executive committee members are not term limited, by the way, just the officers. And how we want to handle that. And then we will need to put a couple people together for a nominating committee to figure out who we want the partnership executive committee leadership to be come July 1. So putting all that out there, questions or comments to start.
Well, let me reiterate, I'm going to step down at the end of the year. And I had a question about whether I should nominate someone else from the partnership. I would nominate William Park. I haven't spoken to him pending this discussion.
Great. And we could probably have our nominating committee not just handle the officer slate, but make recommendations for new executive committee members as well, and just handle it all at one time. I think it's an appropriate use of a nominating committee. So, Greg, since you're an outgoing member, would you be willing to serve as one of the folks on the nominating committee?
Is that a good thing because I'm outgoing or a bad thing because I'm outgoing?
Well, it precludes you from being considered for what the nominating committee will be bringing forward, so that sets you up to be rather objective about it. And you know the history of the partnership.
Setup is a good term. Okay, except I'm away the first half of May, so if that we can work around that.
And really, the nominating committee, it's likely just one meeting. That you folks get together, have a discussion. It can be done virtually. So it's not a heavy lift or a heavy time commitment to serve.
Right. But can it wait till after May 15th?
After when?
May 15th.
Yeah, my guess is the nominating committee would bring forward for action for the June meeting.
Okay.
The signing officers would be voted on by, the officers would be voted on by the executive committee. And then executive committee members get voted on by the full partnership, correct?
Yeah, the executive committee is voted on by the full partnership officers.
I don't believe, I can't remember if the partnership votes on the officers or not.
Elected by the executive committee at the first executive committee of the new fiscal year.
So just the executive, so yeah, it would just need to be completed before the full partnership meeting in June.
Okay. Can I please have 2 other members?
Do you all want to have a conversation about This is a little self-serving, but I'm in my second year of chair. Do we have others that want to talk about the role of the chair, what the chair would need to do? We've only had two chairs, Keith Smith and myself. So I would rather not be involved in the nominating committee. So other folks need to chime in here and participate, because that's what the nominating committee will have to decide and have that conversation.
I think we probably should invite people from the whole membership to be on the committee to nominate to the executive committee. And I think that it would be smart to have a short, succinct description of the duties of the officers and also the commitment of the executive committee, you know, what the purpose is, you know, to kind of sell it a little bit, because right now it has an aura of unpaid work, you know, but not in a bad way, obviously. But, you know, when you have competing elements of things you've got to do, you know what I mean? You'd like to know how much is it going to cost you in terms of time? What's the purpose? You know what I mean? You just want to be upfront about that. And I think that if we're looking for executive committee meetings, members, we should ask the whole entire membership who they think should be on the executive committee. And then the executive committee could then determine who the officers are. But again, we would need to know what the role of the officers are, especially since we've only had two chairs and vice chairs, you know, over the time we've been together.
And what have they done? Just kidding.
We can easily put
That's
that
another
together.
day discussion.
I think for the officers specifically, we can put together what the time commitments and the kind of outside of the meetings, what his role is. I like the idea of having partnership members be part of specifically naming people to the executive committee. Maybe the nominating committee can be split into two, so it's not, you have at least three from the executive committee to talk to the officers, but do it in one meeting and have a large, maybe another three from the partnership. So that you're not having two committees going, just do all the work as one, and the partnership people can jump off when it's time to talk to officers. Not that, I mean, you may want them to participate, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. So Margaret, you want to volunteer? Sounds like you've got some good ideas.
I knew that was coming, but now because I have a rural thing I got to do. So you guys can do this one on your own.
What's that?
She said no.
I said, I've got the discussion group duty.
Yeah.
So I don't want to add another duty.
Don't want to have another duty?
No,
Well,
no,
I
please.
think having a real person on the nominating from the partnership would be good. Who else is there?
My experience with nominating committees from other groups that I've been on, that this is probably about a 30-minute to a 60-minute time commitment.
Yeah.
It will be one meeting. I mean, the TJPDC meetings, the nominating, that's the other one that I'm familiar with for the full commission, the overarching commission. That tends to be about a 30-minute time commitment conversation. So this is not a heavy lift, by the way.
Also, there's two members not here, so there's possibility that they would be interested in being on
Yeah, Keith and
it. Emily.
no.
I can put
Well,
my name in the ring for that.
all right, Greg, we've got Shayla. Thank you, Shayla. And then why don't we reach out? We'll put it on our list to reach out to Emily and Keith to see what their interest is. But we have two of the three named, and then we can ask for volunteers electronically from the full partnership to serve.
Yes.
We could ask for volunteers. Could somebody send us the full membership list?
Yes. You want their contact information, not just names?
Yeah, and is it categorized by each pillar? You use Keith's term. It should be obvious.
Not by pillar, but I what organization they're from or representing.
I mean, my sense is out of the partnership, we should have 3 or 4 people, one from each pillar. Plus one of us, and I'll do that. But I like the idea of inviting.
Yep,
So if you can send a list, then and we want to wait till after the 15th, I'll send out an invitation or Ruth, if you want to send out an invitation for the general membership for people that would volunteer for the nominating committee, that would get us in a little further ahead by the time I get back. I'm out of the country.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to send out a request for volunteers.
Might be worth stating in that request that we're looking for one from each of the pillars.
I'll save a different conversation on the discussion groups for a little later, but specific to new members to the partnership and or new members of the executive committee. Remember, part of the rationale for the discussion groups where that was a way to help maybe us recruit for both the partnership and or the executive committee. So hopefully that participation, once it gets up and going, will yield that for us. Fair? Are there any strong feelings about the bylaws and needing to change anything that's currently set up? And how the term limits are for the officers and or how the executive committee members in general come on to the executive committee?
Speaking personally, I'm not eager to see you step down, Ned.
Appreciate that.
Which would require a change in the bylaw.
I think and I think that's one item that the nominating committee can decide, because then the executive committee will have to decide that. So the nominating committee can bring forward a recommendation and then go from there.
Relating to membership, there have been a few folks who have requested to join the RHP over the last couple of years. That is something that is a bylaws change if we wanted to consider.
They tell me why.
When you two guys are chit-chatting side by side, it's not caring to us. Speak up, Bruce, please.
When folks have asked to join the partnership over the years, that requires a bylaws change. So I'm asking, yeah, tell me.
So we've had requests from like the Charlottesville Redevelopment and Housing Authority to become members of the RHP. Most recently, possibly someone from the Carr Foundation interested in joining. The Community Land Trust is interested in participating. They would like to be members of the RHP, not in one of the categories that rotates.
Yep,
Does that make sense?
yep, stand an actual member.
Yes.
So we need to actually do a bylaws change to say, yes, come on in.
If we would like to do that, yes.
Any opposition to that? We've got specific categories which can be limiting, but yeah, so Dave Norris, I'm assuming, is asked, because he's the new executive director of the Carr Foundation. And you said the
RHP redevelopment.
Land trust.
land trust. I mean, these are all folks that should be at the table, frankly.
Yes.
And CHRA helps with our fourth leg that we're weak on, which is they're closer to the user group than most of us.
So perhaps we can bring forward a bylaws revision that doesn't get rid of the categories, because the categories were set up for purpose. We wanted to make sure we had a minimum representation. But we could probably add a very easy sentence to say, membership to the partnership will be considered by request and sent to approval for the full partnership or acceptance, so that we can figure that out. Any objection to that?
No, I think that I thought that's where we're all headed, is we wanted to get more participation. And I don't know if we need to put a cap on the size of the overall board. There was a concern about the overall partnership, but I think if the executive committee is gonna be the sort of heavy lifter group, then I don't personally see a problem with a larger overall partnership.
Whatever
see.
happened to the end result of that last study? Did we ever decide what of her recommendations we were gonna do, or any, or none?
We're discussing that right now.
The discussion groups were born out of that as a way to gauge what membership, we were open to the idea of expanding the partnership numbers and members who could be on it. And then the other dual purpose was the surveys that were saying that they were feeling the partnership was a little too more urban based. So, for some more rural networking and rural plus other issues. So the discussion group was born out of that. Both as a way to address some responses in the survey, but also then identify perhaps people that could be involved in the partnership that we could invite to join that are not currently seated with us. So that was kind of the original seed idea for the discussion groups concept. Plus, obviously, then bringing initiatives forward that for the executive committee to decide if we would like to pursue or not. The output of the meetings.
Well, I think it's always better to have more people in the conversation than fewer people in the conversation. So I don't have any problem with the folks who are asking to join to join. Maybe if we put off an aura of exclusivity, more people will want to join. So that would not be a bad thing either, right? Like, oh, you might not get in. And then more people want to get in. Then it's.
My sense being involved with the full partnership meetings over the last handful of years is that the size has not become unwieldy. It's not as if we're taking a ton of actions that require, we're not really approving full-on multi-million-dollar budgets. We're not doing, several dozen initiatives year in and year out. It's really about the input. And then we usually have been able to get everybody engaged and involved so that we're not, it doesn't become a time issue, a time management issue. So I'm not concerned about the group growing larger, just based on the things that we do in our full partnership meetings could accommodate it, I believe. And if it ever became, there have been times when we've broken into subgroups back when we were doing strategic planning and things, so we can always opt for that too. If it's a larger group, you can segment it off.
Could we address the too urbane comment? Are there other organizations in our rural counties that we could invite to add to this list?
I was hoping the urban discussion group or the rural discussion group would identify
Right.
those.
All right. Let's just put that out there for that. That's perfect.
Yeah, and then, because that was really the primary one that kind of popped the idea was for the rural folks to have a network. And then are we at, if we're excluding membership or there are people in the rural areas that should be in the partnership, they're bringing them in will, by sheer participation, help us not just be considered Charlottesville, Albemarle, or an urban issue. I think. So, I know the discussion groups are a lift, it's extra work. But it wasn't just to have something to do. It was designed to attempt to identify some issues, identify people. And, everybody seemed to agree it was a good idea for those reasons. So now we just have to execute. Which I appreciate your efforts, Greg. I saw your email and
Bruce jumped right on it. We've got the invitation out.
And then if other executive committee members, if you could review any notes you or memory of the last partnership meeting, it's easier for executive committee members to kind of push or encourage these things get up and running than staff having to do it. So, I'm certainly can be involved, but I'm not, this was an idea, everybody agreed it was a good idea, I'm a big believer in, well, if you thought it was a good idea and you agreed to participate, then you gotta do it. And I'm not a big fan of having to go around and being like, you gotta get the job done. But, some positive reinforcement, encouragement from the executive committee members out to who our discussion group leads were, can be powerful. So that Ruth or Christine or somebody are not feeling like they have to go and police that. And I'm willing to chair or host the opening meeting. It's probably gonna be 2 meetings per. I don't think it has to be 3. It could be 6 if a discussion group thought it was worth it. But, at this point in time, even at the end of March, I was thinking it'll probably end up being 2 90-minute meetings. And they'll get everything accomplished. But we'll have our first one Tuesday, it sounds like. And I don't know where the other 2, we settled with 3 groups, right? So I don't know where the 2 groups are.
They have not scheduled anything today.
And there are some folks out there who've asked me, well, what happened with this? You asked me what group I was gonna be on, who's, so I know Ruth sent a reminder out. But if any of you could forward that Ruth's reminder to some folks and just say, hey, we talked about this in the executive committee, we gotta get this up and going, maybe restate the reasons why we did it. That kind of colleague to colleague interaction sometimes can be a good motivator.
Margaret, have you guys set the rural one yet? You just said that you were leading you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Yeah, no, I know. I just said, I know, I saw that. No, I started working on that today because actually I read the top part of Ruth's initial email and didn't realize I was picked. And then I hit her up and I was like, who is this anyway? And she was like, oh, it's you. And I was like, oh my God. All right. So I'm getting on it. So I'll have it done by the end of this month, the first one. And yeah, I'll have it set up as soon as I can.
Wasn't there somebody else for the rural group too?
I mean, I got like 5 people in the rural group, so I'm hit them up with an email just saying, when can you meet? And then also for them to expand who wants to be in it. So we'll get it done. Don't worry about it. I'm definitely up against the wire kind of person. Operate on a deadline basis.
Understood.
I sent a reminder to the executive committee members for each group that
Gotcha.
they need to organize, but I did designate a particular executive committee member as the organizer.
Got it.
Primary organizer.
Got it. And then the homeless group is the 3rd one.
Yeah, that's Sheila.
Yep, I'm in the same boat as Margaret. I'm a deadlines kind of person, so I'm working on that this week and hope to have that meeting wrapped up by the end of this month.
Thank you, Sharon. And again, like I said, this is kind of a, if 2 meetings happened in May, they don't have to be monthly. But we don't want to wait and just have 2 at the end of June to say that we checked it off. Hopefully it'll be substantive. And I'm here to help with the first meeting. We sent out a suggested agenda, and I have run many of those meetings in that agenda format. I don't feel that I need to be there to run the second one. I think the second one will have a different agenda than the first. But I'm happy to help with that so like, let's say Greg for his group can then, he's relinquished from having to run the meeting, he can participate with somebody else, just tasked with running the meeting. I think it'll help with the content that will be discussed. But it's not required. If you'd rather just do your thing, do your thing.
No, FYI, that's why I reached out to you as soon as I needed to step in the breach to get this group going, just to make sure you could be there, because I think it makes sense, just as you describe it.
I appreciate you guys' efforts for this. All right, well, is there anything else there, Ruth, on? We've got the potential change for the bylaws for the other partnership members. Got a nominating committee that is 2/3 formed. And a plan to get the other partnership members to come forward, so we should be good. I don't believe, unless any executive committee members have other changes or items in the bylaws that they want to bring up, it's not a very.
I have a thought, I think an idea is to bring two different versions to propose to you all, but it seems like we can put a generic statement about, and any other members as interested and approved to join, but it seems like there's also an opportunity. And maybe we do this in another version so you can compare them side by side, in breaking out the pillars and talking about minimum membership in each one, but they're allowed to expand as the board sees. So you're not necessarily saying we want these 21 and anybody else. Instead, we want these 4 pillars with minimum representation in each one, but then anybody's welcome to join. You know, so we could say like, you know, public sector, local government, consisting of a minimum of 1 member from each jurisdiction. You could say, you know, nonprofit sector consisting of a minimum of an urban and a rural nonprofit to make sure it's covered. But then any nonprofit that wanted to be a part of the board would fit into that pillar. Versus here is our set membership and everybody else is other. Just a thought that I was having about generalizing it to make it more obvious that we are welcoming of anybody that would want to join.
I mean, my initial reaction to that is positive. I like that it goes from the pillars, and I think the minimum representation is a must. That's key. We do have to, I don't think it's the bylaws restricts it, but figuring out how to get more residents versus just everybody speaking for the residents. But that's not a bylaws change. That's a membership push.
So I just peeked at the agenda of these breakout groups. It doesn't explicitly say, let's think of who else might want to join in this, you know, this group. But I think that would be a good outcome, a good priority coming out of each of these meetings.
Yeah, my thought on that in the design was that, oh, you know, Greg knows 10 people that are really content expert or passionate about this as a topic, or would be great engagement. And to not have them in a discussion would almost seem foolish. And then once they're there, they're like, what is this? What is this group again? Maybe I want to participate, but it kind of, as opposed to having a 90-minute meeting about how to get other people, the people you invite in is kind of the key to saying, hey, kind of come into the fold. They're only committing to a 90-minute meeting, but then based on the participation you see, you'll probably identify some folks that go, you know what, you'd be a great member on the partnership. Understood, and I agree with that. I'm just saying it is a good opportunity. Now, the discussion group could bring up that as an issue. You know, the discussion group is designed to identify issues and then just figure out which ones are the priority issues for attack or not. But that could be one. Depends on the group. All right, well, I think we're there on that one.
I got a quick question. Who from CAR wants to be on the partnership, and is that person invited to the urban discussion?
It's the CAR Foundation.
It's the car
It's
The
the
foundation.
CAR Foundation, right, and there's only 1 staff member. It's the new director of the foundation.
It's Dave Norris.
Oh, Davis Carr. Okay.
Dave Norris, and they just started this, what, 2 months ago?
Yes. Yeah. All right. That's right. So is Dave invited on Tuesday on that invitation? If not, can we add him?
I will ask him.
Thank you.
Great. Well, that will take us to item number 6, old business. And we have a review of the RHP strategic plan priorities, and Ruth has a brief presentation to share on this topic.
All right. Purpose of this presentation today is to just go back over what's in the strategic plan for the RHP. Because we have talked about a lot of different additional possible priorities, and so we need to talk about how those fit in with our existing priorities and just see where we want to go. So what's in the strategic plan already? We have some goals that we're trying to achieve, like equipping stakeholders for success, deepening and sustaining collaborations between our stakeholders, strengthening the affordable housing ecosystem, and creating a sustainable infrastructure for the RHP. And we've made some progress in some of these areas. The first goal, equipping housing stakeholders for success. We talked about and wrote in the strategic plan that we were going to create a toolkit for affordable housing policies, models, and case studies that stakeholders can use in their planning and zoning process. Right now, that is something that our AmeriCorps Vista is working on. So that one's being addressed. Research and collate a list of resources and relationships that support or fund affordable housing initiatives. That is tied in with the toolkit as well. Develop and deploy real-time regional housing dashboard. That is, again, something that our AmeriCorps Vista is working on this year. May or may not be completed this year, but it should be completed sometime in the next year or so. And then complete a feasibility study for a regional land bank. This is something that's been talked about a lot, and there's been some movement with the city of Charlottesville to create a land bank. So we need to consider, is this something we still want to do or not?
And how do we address something like that?
We would need to consider if that is something that you all want staff to start working on. We would need to be applying for funding for a feasibility study and figure out if we want to do that before doing the housing needs assessment update, which the executive committee did direct the staff to move forward on. So we're currently applying for funding for that. If we need to change direction, we would have the same funding source for a feasibility study for a land bank, so we would not be able to do both in the same year.
So maybe that's a discussion item in each of these groups to see, try to get it as a priority.
It could be, yeah.
Right, this is why we need to go over the strategies and make sure we're all on the same page. Goal 2, strengthening the affordable housing ecosystem in the region through education and advocacy. Our strategies were develop and deploy an education strategy to address common community barriers. I don't know that we have done any work in that area specifically. Develop and share a community library of resources that strengthen affordable housing. That is also wrapped into what our AmeriCorps Vista is working on this year and will be continued next year, provided we are able to get another AmeriCorps Vista. Amplify messaging that illustrates the positive impact of strong affordable housing in the region. We are trying to do that through a communication strategy that our AmeriCorps Vista has developed this year, but it probably should be bigger than just a communication strategy. Leverage a housing dashboard to engage the community in affordable housing conversations. Again, that's related to what our AmeriCorps Vista is doing, but then that will need to be communicated out widely. And we'll be relying on that full partnership to help with that. Goal 3, deepen and sustain collaboration between affordable housing stakeholders. Strategies, engage stakeholders around a shared regional vision. I think we do that at full partnership meetings. Leverage a calendar of events to address timely and pressing issues and build connections. I feel like that one is being addressed both through some of the events that we've held and also through these discussion groups, should they be successful, but I could probably use some more attention. Facilitate meaningful cross-sector connections. That's a large part of the full partnership meetings. Deploy robust messaging with all stakeholders to inform, invite, and engage. That would be our communication strategy. Goal 4, create a sustainable infrastructure for the RHP to support the region's affordable housing goals. Revise bylaws and membership to encourage diverse and dynamic participation. That is something that we worked with Amy Neesonson on and also have discussed today. And I think we have some good potential changes to the bylaws. Ensure diverse funding streams with a focus on sustained investment from stakeholders. We've been talking about this a lot, what the budget should look like, where those funds should come from.
How much does that subject tie into the subject of membership and part of the partnership?
It can tie in as much or as little as you like. Amy Neesonson recommended that we have a suggested donation for all RHP members based on the type of entity that they're representing. And that would be a significant funding stream for us. However, that's not a reliable funding stream if we're not a membership organization, which we are currently not. Membership organization would require that membership. It would be a membership due at that point. Where what was suggested by Neesonson was a donation, and that's because of the type of organization we are right now, being a sub-organization of the TJPBC. So if the RHP were to become its own nonprofit, you could require a membership fee. Recruit, equip, and retain staff for capacity to support RHP's strategic goals. We're doing our best to make sure we have staff.
Which ties directly into the previous bullet. You need the
Yeah.
money to do that, yeah.
Well, we did have the conversation about the funding prior to this Neesonson's suggestion about trying to come up with a split of. So the localities right now are giving a contribution. I believe UVA gave an initial contribution. And then we had come up with an idea of a split for the for-profits and the nonprofits, which was a different level, not on the same level with the localities and what UVA did, but
Right.
But we've never implemented or enacted that.
Correct.
So right now, we're still going to the localities for money. Are we going to UVA in? Because that was just a one-time kind of setup deal.
UVA did give a contribution this year voluntarily, but it was not a direct request.
Right, but it's not, it's not like, oh, this would be an annual account. So it's something that if we're, the staffing, and then if some of the initiatives that come out of the discussion groups is going to cost money and staffing. So it's either we do one thing a year, for lack of a better, or we have to really come up with a hard ask for people that are participating. That's understood and just that we can budget for and plan for in the coming years.
Yeah, and one thing I want to caution you guys about is that a lot of the strategies that we've been able to work on in the last year have been through our AmeriCorps Vista. But our AmeriCorps Vista is not supposed to do work that's like normal work for the organization. It's supposed to be capacity building, one-time type work.
Yeah.
So if it ends up being something that needs continual maintenance, like the housing dashboard, they can build it, but they cannot maintain it in the long term. So like I can have Davey build it, but I can't have our next AmeriCorps Vista maintain it.
Understood.
So that would have to be JPDC staff, not Vista.
Is the timing of Davies completing this work and leaving us sadly, work with the timing of a full partnership meeting that she can have a big chunk of the agenda? Some of these things would best be presented to the full partnership.
Yeah, her end of service is in August, so the next full partnership meeting will be before that. I'll work with her to see if the dashboard will be ready at that point. But I believe they should be.
Or at least some progress report so that the full partnership gets a sense of some of these bigger things.
Yes.
Great.
And I'm happy to jump in. So I've been working on a policy matrix for the past few months, as I've sort of moved away from the communication strategy. We have some blog posts coming from Flavanna Louisa Housing Foundation, as well as Virginia Housing Alliance, to sum up the General Assembly this year and any sort of housing legislation that came. So those are on the way. The policy matrix, I've been working with city planners to get concise verbiage for the definitions they're using for their strategies, the ordinances, and also what is in their current comp plans. I have 3 counties built out so far, and I'm working on the other 3. So I should have that ready to present, and I'm working on some maps from census data for the dashboard right now.
Fabulous.
Great, thank you, Dave.
So other initiatives that we've had brought forward that are not currently in the strategic plan are the return on investment that Keith has brought forward. I've heard requests for other engagements with the community. So I'm just bringing this forward as a opportunity for you all to consider what's in the strategic plan and what we might want to move faster on or table for now.
Got it. Questions? We kind of asked them throughout, but any additional? I think we'll be into the next fiscal year before we decide on initiatives. So we have some time to figure this out, which will have some budget refresh at the start of the fiscal year.
Yep.
But some of these initiatives may end up taking some fundraising efforts to get them paid for. In addition to what we receive in budget for the annual items that we do.
So at this time, it sounds like I will prepare a presentation for the full partnership on the strategies and what progress we have made.
And by then you will have from the discussion groups, potentially,
Additional projects.
if there's 3 discussion groups, you could have anywhere from 3 to 9 more things to be in the loop that we may need to. And we don't know if they'll be high dollar or not high dollar, but there could be other things in the mix, including that economic analysis and the other things that you've listed. Great. Any other comments or questions there? Well, we are tracking to be on, I was going to bring up the discussion group stuff under other business, but we've already talked about that. So I don't think we need to review any of that. But if you're running into issues, just reach out to Ruth and or myself and we'll work through them. But we are on track to get done by 3 today for this meeting, so we'll do our roundtable. Colette, you wanna share some stuff from UVA today?
Sure. Let me look at my notes. So, our developer on Wortland and 10th, I understand is starting to engage with the city around site plan and BAR requirements. I'm sure that will take some time to get through, but they're working on that. Their community outreach continues. I think, PHA is, poised to start the community engagement piece on Piedmont. We're still doing archaeological work on that site. You know that we found some graves, some burial grounds that are not on the directly on the development site, but adjacent to it. So we have to be careful.
Colette, you went to mute there somehow.
I did it
We
by
heard
itself.
part of the.
Sorry, on the Piedmont site, where PHA is getting ready to launch into some community engagement about development on that site. We continue to do archaeological work because there is, you know, a burial ground that is not on the development site itself, but it's adjacent to it. And North Fork, we're, you know, have to internally, now that we have our rezoning, talk about, you know, the next steps for those residential development, the residential development out there. That's where we are.
And that really the big next, I mean, you've got a lot of internal things to go over, but the request for proposals is probably one of the next big mile markers, right?
Right.
Putting it out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Greg?
Well, there continues to be a lot of activity coming out of the rezoning in the city. I've been working with one property manager who's brought to me a half a dozen properties that they think, quote, ripe for redevelopment, and at least 2 or 3 of them are very appropriate for affordable housing, 100% affordable housing. So that's been an exciting, at a smaller scale. The larger scale people are still trying to figure out how to get around having to do affordable with their up zone properties, which is a little disappointing. I'm working on that. And I'd be interested, I'd love to hear Stacy's take on what the county's recent incentives program, whether that's generating a similar activity in the county.
I've had a few preliminary discussions so far, but nothing definite. A lot of what I've been doing is clearing the confusion behind who needs to follow the new rules, right? So the housing, once the incentive package was adopted, we implemented the full housing policy. So there has been some confusion about which projects need to comply with the 20% affordable and all of those requirements in the housing policy and which don't. So that has been a lot of that conversation so far, and some preliminary discussions around the incentive package.
One thing I continue from time to time to get out of town developers, affordable housing developers that want to come into the market and can't find sites. So I don't know where the county's effort to identify sites ended up, but if there are some potential thoughts on sites, I might be able to bring developers to the table.
Good to know. All right. Thank you, Greg. Margaret?
We're out here just doing regular business as usual. Rehab, vouchers. We started work on the Home Art project out in Roseland, which is going to be at least 1 duplex to start, but we want to design the whole thing. Just doing a couple of whole house rehabs for sale. So we're hoping to generate some find some people to buy houses. And I don't really have an update on Renaissance Ridge, but I hope I'll have one soon.
Thank you. Shayla?
Thanks, Ned. Pachem shelter season just ended April 12th, but thanks to some private donors in the community, we were able to help about 1/3 of the clients with hoteling through the end of this weekend. So that was really nice. We're still looking for some more funds for that to extend their stays if possible. And also Bracknell has a partnership with Supportive Services for Veteran Families, or SSVF. So we have an outreach rep who will be housed in my office at City Space about 2 to 3 times a week. So if you encounter any veterans in our planning district area who are either homeless or at risk of homelessness, you can have them get in touch with me and I can connect them with that person.
Great, thank you. In Albemarle, the focus of the last few months has been budget, of course. We have a public hearing this evening. And then we'll take the final vote in May. Usually that'll then open up the board's attention to other items. The incentive piece that I would add, like I know we had a project that we approved a week ago. It was pretty much to the finish line before the incentives were there. But I know that development group went in and had a good sit down with everybody. Using that project as an example, and perhaps others they've already got up and that were already previously approved, to understand what the incentive program is. And that included housing folks, finance folks, representation from the county executive's office. And I know from the developer side of the conversation, they were very grateful to have that. And I think, like Stacy said, clearing up confusion. Even though that's about projects already in motion, I think there's still confusion about what we passed. So education and helping folks understand what it is that we passed and how it works is still ongoing. So I'm just encouraging developers that, I hear you, Greg, on site selection, but if they have a site and they're not quite clear on what the incentive piece is, the county is ready to sit down with Stacy, Khaki, Jacob, or a representative from the CFO's office, and Ann Wall from our county executive's office to talk it through, and then use specifics of each site to see if we can make this work. Because the flexibility is baked into the incentive plan. So, and the board is willing to do its part to make sure things get moved through quickly. As quick as possible, and then we'll see. We'll have to see how it goes. Well, folks, that gets us to 3:01. I tried to get us done by 3 o'clock, but I talked too long on my roundtable portion to move us to 3:01. But I appreciate everyone participating, and I appreciate your efforts in helping to get the discussion groups up and going. I think we'll find these actually enjoyable versus kind of like, oh, something else I have to do. And I'm hoping that we'll get good content back from them. We start hearing report outs in either May and or June. So with that, I appreciate and good to see everybody on the screen. And you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll see each other again next month. The meeting is adjourned.
See you, everybody. Thank you.